You are listening to an update from Washington with the Congressman from Alabama's 1st Congressional District, Bradley Byrne. Now from our nation's capital, Congressman Byrne.
Welcome into this week's edition of an update from Washington. I'm Seth Morrow, joined by Congressman Bradley Byrne, and today we're going to be looking at some of the conflict going on in the Middle East right now. Congressman, let's start with Iraq and looking at the Islamic State. What is the state of play in terms of how the Islamic State is doing in the region?
Well, the Islamic State right now controls most or virtually all of the land area between Damascus, which is the capital of Syria, and Baghdad, which is the capital of Iraq. It's a huge area, and there's something like 30 million Sunni Arabs in that area that are basically not in any particular state, and that's why the state or the group of people that call themselves the Islamic State have proclaimed that is where they have their caliphate, as they call it. They control it in just about every practical sense, militarily, of course, but also they control this, all the civic things that happen there. They have their own court system. They control who gets utilities, how they get utilities, and they control a lot of oil fields. So they've essentially set up their own quasi-nation out there, and that's why you see all these efforts to push them back. As they push against the Assad regime in Syria, they have an actual state actor there pushing back, and that's from the West. And from the east, you have Baghdad pushing on behalf of Iraq, the government of Iraq, pushing that way. But both governments have proven to be pretty weak, so now you see other players getting involved, Iran, Turkey. The United States, of course, have been involved the last year or so, and just recently here, Russia.
And let's talk about Russia getting involved. What do you think that does not only to those specific countries, but to the region in general?
Well, it's a further source of instability. As America has failed to act and created a vacuum there's a natural amount of instability, and then Russia comes in and makes it even further unstable. And you now have the further problem of Russian jets and American jets actually having trouble with one another. So it's a powder keg, and something bad could happen that could really ratchet up all the violence there, which is pretty high as it is, any day now. So America needs a strategy, and we have no strategy. The president's interview with CBS 60 Minutes over the weekend with Steve Croft was terrible. I mean, he showed no grasp for the realities of what's going on there and a total lack of strategy for what to be done. And it was painfully obvious in that interview that we need to get a new strategy there.
Would you be supportive of a large-scale U.S. military involvement, or what should the United States do?
Well, I don't think we need to put a large number of combat troops in either Syria or Iraq. I've always been against that. I think that would be a prescription for failure. But we're doing the opposite now. We're doing basically nothing. There was this pretension over the last year that we were going to train Syrian rebel soldiers that we had vetted to make sure they weren't bad guys, and we found 50-some-odd of them, of which only 5 or 6 remain, which tells you how abysmal that has failed. But we've got to do something more than nothing, and the something is to work with troops that are on the ground that have shown some success, forward position our trainers with them, forward position advisors with them, forward position people that can be aiming our very precision-guided armaments in a very precise way against the enemy. If we combine all that together with the forces that are making headway, like the Kurds, like certain elements of the Iraqi army, like certain elements of the Turkish armed forces that are there on the northern border of Syria, and then get our friends from Saudi Arabia and Jordan more involved with their troops, we can squeeze this group ISIS into an ever tighter area there in Syria and Iraq.
And I know we're quickly running out of time, but one quick question before we go. What do you think the impact of military budget cuts will have on our efforts in the Middle East?
Well, it's already made them worse, and it's going to make them far worse if we continue to make the cuts. And we can't continue to expect our military to fight all these engagements and be prepared for other engagements all around the world unless we give them the equipment and training and personnel that they need, and that means we've got to spend some more money.
Well, thank you, Congressman, as always, and we look forward to talking with everyone next week.
You have been listening to an update from Washington with Congressman Bradley Byrne. Congressman Byrne encourages you to contact him with any comments or questions. You can email him online at byrne.house.gov or find him on Facebook under U.S. Representative Bradley Byrne. Stay tuned to this station next week for another timely report from our nation's capital. This broadcast has been pre-recorded.